Welcome back to another episode of Boots on the Ground, where we discuss Israel's politics, war, and identity. Today, Ari, we're going to discuss Hasbarah, and does Israel really need to explain itself? But first, as always, we want to thank our partners at Jerusalem Media Group and our sponsors, BeThereIsrael.com, for all your celebrations and commemorations here in Israel. BeThereIsrael.com provides live streaming of events here in Israel to your families and friends around the world. And now, on with the show. Ari, how are you?
I'm doing well, Shaun. How are you doing?
Good. Almost done with my reserve duty. But a number of things have come up recently. We're at the end of the first, shall we call it, the first round of the Gaza peace treaty. We are privileged to have a number of bodies that have come back recently. This afternoon was the funeral of
And our golden.
Golden, who has spent his body has spent 11 years being buried in Gaza. And within all of this, I was thinking about the concept of Hasbarah, or Israel's explanation, the way Israel presents itself to the world. And it's a very large industry with many well-known organizations that do excellent jobs. And we have various government ministries that explain Israel's situation to the world, or try and explain the situation to the world, both militarily and everything else. But we seem to have failed.
Yes.
The reputation of Israel is at best dismal, and people don't seem to like us very much. Why is that? Is there a solution? And I think it's something that the two of us could really hash out here.
All right, so let's do it.
So let's hear your opinion on all this.
So I would think that there's about three core problems with the Hasbara issue, we'll call it. Some are easier to deal with and some are others. I think that the first is the messaging itself. We'll get into that afterwards, but on the side that the message that Israel is giving to the world, it's the wrong message. We're using the wrong model, the wrong messaging, like any PR campaign. If you use the wrong message, you get the wrong result. I think the other one is structural. We have 5 government ministries and at least 2, if not 3 government agencies officially in charge of Hasbara. So the second there's 5, 6, or 7 people in charge of something, in the end of the day, no one's actually, in the end, they're responsible for it. And I think the third issue, which is the one, is who are we trying to explain ourselves to? Who's our audience? And I think here there's 2 audiences. There's the people that are never going to support us, are never going to like us, no matter what we do. We can explain ourselves all day. They're never going to be our friends, and we're wasting our time and energy. And then there's the Jewish world and what we'd call allies today. People who are, on some level, whether it's morally, politically, are more on our side than they would be against us. And we're not speaking to those people enough, and we're not speaking to them in the way that's effective.
So you may have answered the question already, but I was going to put it to you like this. You've just come back from a great trip in the US,
Correct.
and I'm sure you hear this a lot. I hear this whenever I'm traveling, mostly in Europe, but everywhere else. Israel just has a problem with Hasbarah. And I hear this from my friends, from my family, people who are coming from the most well-intentioned of places. Israel just doesn't explain itself properly. Israel has a Hasbarah problem. You've just answered it in 3 different categories, but I'm sure you hear that all the time too.
Correct. But that goes back again to recognizing who our audience is. Anyone coming to hear either one of us speak abroad, they're in the camp of the people who are at least in somewhat supportive already of Israel or the concept of Israel. But the messaging that they're getting is weak, and it's not the correct message. They're not hearing Israel being proud and strong for who it is. It's unwavering. They hear Israel trying to make itself comfortable for the world to accept, instead of recognizing that the world as a whole, society as a whole, is never going to accept Israel. They're not going to be our friends. They're not going to like us. The fact that we are the only Jewish state in the world is not something the world necessarily wants or accepts. We have to accept that instead of fighting it, and not try and convince everyone why we're right, and just be proud and stand up for who we are without being ashamed of our Jewish ethos on the one hand, and on the same time, put our focus not on us, but on our enemies. Don't focus on ourselves, because we're not the problem here. Focus on the problems we actually have. Our Hasbarah should be focused around who Hamas is and what they've been doing and what they did do. Our PR, our Hasbarah needs to be focused on who Hezbollah is and what they're doing, who Iran really is and what they're doing, and not focused on, oh, we grow cherry tomatoes, or we invented ICQ, or the pill cam, or all the other wonderful pieces of technology that we've brought to this world. And not only that, our Hasbarah needs to be in a way that we're not being viewed, even internally we're being viewed this way at this point. So our Hasbarah also internally is weak. Like, for example, the United States, that we're now the 51st state of America, or that we're dependent on the US for military support. Whereas we should be saying, we are amazing, we are strong, we're proud of who we are, and Israel and America should be happy to have us as an ally. America should be grateful that they have an ally like us. America needs us more than we need them.
Right. So we'll get into the American thing in a minute because it's very important. But I want to tell you how I came up with this discussion.
Okay.
When we started speaking about this idea is, in the course of my military duty, there are times where, as a soldier, we need to do things that put us in uncomfortable situations. It's because it is our duty, and that is the way we protect our people and our country. Not everything is glorified and fun. Some of the work we do is downright hard.
Okay.
And I was with a group of my soldiers, and somebody had said something about, like, how do we explain this? And, it was one of these 3 o'clock in the morning conversations, and suddenly something dawned on me. Why do we need to? And I took it to an extreme situation, is go back 500 years ago during the horrible blood libels in Europe. Could you imagine at a shul in York that is about to be burnt down by an anti-Semitic mob who are enraged because of blood libels? Can you imagine two Jews sitting in the shul there that is about to get burnt down, and they said, we didn't explain ourselves well. If only we would have told those people outside we didn't actually slaughter that Christian child and drink his blood, then everything would have been okay.
Right, but that goes to what I'm saying, is you have to accept the fact that those people are going to believe that blood libel no matter what. They're going to hate you, and in every generation, there's always going to be the people. It doesn't matter. Facts and truth they're irrelevant to these people. It doesn't matter how much talking or explaining we do. We're never going to change their minds. So why are we wasting time and energy trying?
Well, that's exactly the point. Why have we spent so much time and energy since the founding of the state? Actually, no, I don't think since the founding of the state. Since I've been here, since as far as I can remember, going back at least 35, 40 years, there is so much time, energy, and money spent on trying to explain ourselves, trying to justify where we are, even to the point where we're trying to justify our very existence. Where does that come from?
It's the need for acceptance. The Jewish people are looking to be accepted in the rest of the world like every other nation. Instead of recognizing that we're different, we're not like every other nation. We are, by definition, we're separated out from the rest of the world. We have a different set of rules. We have a different set of regulations of how we're supposed to live our life. Some of those rules keep us separate from the greater society intentionally. When it comes to our dietary laws of kashrut, keeps us separate from the rest of the world. When it comes to different behaviors of modesty, it separates us out from the rest of the world. We're different. We have to just accept that we're different from the rest of the world, and we have to just be proud of that and not try and get the world to accept us and change who we are and change the way we dress or change the way we behave or change the way we speak so that the world will accept us.
See, I see it slightly differently. Yes, we're different, but maybe I was jaded. For a long time, I was of the opinion that we are in a new era, and there is now international law, and there is a law and order of the world. There is a general accepted standard of the way things should be. And more I'm realizing, yes, there is a generally accepted standard, but Israel is treated differently. Yes, there is law and order, but Israel is still treated differently. Yes, there is international law and Hague conventions, but Israel is still treated differently. And over time, the fact that we're constantly going to be treated differently is something that I've finally come to terms with. Is yeah, we are different. We're going to be treated differently, and all of these international treaties and laws and order, they're always going to be made exceptional to us.
Right. But that's what I've been saying all along is once you accept the fact that you're different, once you accept the fact that there's a different set of rules that the world is going to press on you, once you accept the fact that you are going to be treated differently, you don't have to fight that reality anymore. You accept that reality. You say, I'm not going to waste my energies in trying to change that because you're not going to, at least not successfully, and not at least not significantly in any capacity. So now you just accept that. Now you work within that reality. Once you've accepted that reality, you can now work within it.
Okay, so now we accept the reality. Israel is always going to be treated differently. We're always going to be under the microscope. We're always going to be criticized. So now what do we do?
So that's where it comes down to where I was saying.
What do we do now as Israelis?
What do we do now? So what we do now is again, we can leave the whole structural change that I was talking about for the different ministries, and we can leave that for a separate conversation.
No, let's talk about us and people who are listening to us, our friends
right.
and family.
So I said
what
we
do
can
do?
leave that governmental issue aside for a minute. That's another whole reform that hopefully one day will enact and create some actual governmental efficiency. It's government, so who knows? But leave that aside. We go back to two other issues that I brought up, the message and the audience, right? With the audience, you have the people that are either already listening, we'll call them the Zionist Jewish communities around the world, and the people that are associated with them, the people who agree with them, people like Officer Tatum or people like Victor Davis Hanson.
Not necessarily Jewish.
Not necessarily Jewish.
People who support us for a variety of reasons.
For whether it's because they recognize the morality, they recognize the honesty, they recognize that we're allies and we're fighting the same wars, whether it's for economic reasons, whatever reason, they support us already, right? And then there are the people that no matter what we do, they're not going to listen, right? So the people who aren't going to listen, no matter what we say, they're the easiest ones because for them, I don't have to do any Hasbarah. I just have to win. Just be the strongest, meanest person in the region. Always win. If you win every battle, people like that, they're cowards. They're afraid to be on the losing side. If you know that no matter what, you pick a fight with Israel, Israel's going to win, then it's easier for you to either just say nothing, or you pick your battles of where you're going to criticize Israel and how you're going to point out their flaws a little bit more carefully because you know in the end of the day they're going to win.
Right.
That means on the battlefield, that means off the battlefield. Israel just needs to constantly win. That's the reality that we're in.
So I'll give you a great example of how I saw that play out recently is the global flotilla against Israel. It started off as a small flotilla of a couple of boats. The infamous Greta Thunberg was on it and a bunch of other come lately activists who've decided that Israel is their new cause. And the IDF and the Navy stopped them. They were arrested and deported. And then they came around and said, no, now we're going to send not just a few boats, we're going to send dozens of boats, including Turkish activists and people from all over the world and a lot of celebrities and things else, et cetera, et cetera. Because there's no way Israel is going to stop dozens of boats. And you know what? We did. We did it well. We arrested them. We put them in prison and we deported them almost instantly, including the fact that many of them came specifically on Yom Kippur.
Right.
And we turned them around and we kicked them out and we won. And now they're all very quiet. They might try again, but they know, try again, we're going to beat you back.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of what I was saying. We did it well, we won, and that's it. That's the end of the story. There's no bigger story there going on.
No.
But now to get back to the other audience, because that's where I think our failure is worse. When you're failing to speak to your own people, whether it's the Jewish communities, whether it's the Zionist Christians, whether it's no religious affiliation, political allies of ours, with them, we're also failing with our message. But they're also, because the message that we're using, the messaging is not a message of strength and leadership. It's a message of subservience, of being a follower, not a leader. What I mean by that is our messaging is we're part of the Western world. We're the same as you. You like us. We're comfortable. We water down our messaging because we're afraid to insult or to hurt the feelings of anybody. Whereas with them, your messaging we need to double down and make our messaging even stronger so that our messaging empowers them. When we stand up and say, yes, Israel, not the most moral army in the world, Israel is the most efficient army in the world. Or Israel is the Jewish people who brought morality into the world. You can't lecture me on morality. I invented it. Well, God invented it and gave it to us. On the global level, we invented morality. We brought it to the world. You can't lecture us that we're not moral enough and that our behavior isn't right. We're the decisors of that, not you. And we lead the world in that. And when we speak strongly and proudly to our own people, it empowers them to continue supporting us. Because again, they're supporting a winner. And they're supporting someone who's proud of himself. They're not supporting the underdog anymore.
Right. I think that there are two very important points that I want to bring up here. The first is there is a general leaning, especially in the Western world, is always support the underdog. Might is wrong. The weaker side is always right. Everything needs to be about equilibrium. Therefore, if Israel is strong, Israel is automatically wrong. If
That's
the Palestinians,
that's a very progressive
right, if the
approach to the Western world.
Palestinians are seen as weak, it doesn't matter what they do, they're right.
Well, that's progressivism.
Right, but unfortunately, that idea has seeped into a lot of Western thinking today, and I think that's one of the things we see a lot, especially at university level and things like that. Is strong is wrong, weak is right, and therefore that is how you decide the fate of nations.
Right. But in the end of the day, when you're speaking with those people, if you speak with strength and conviction, and you're not afraid of who you are, you don't hide your Jewishness, you don't hide your history, you don't hide the actual values and morality of Judaism, and you're proud of them from their Jewish source, they can feel what they want. In the end of the day, they come around. I'll give you a great example.
Yeah.
When I was in California, I had an event. Okay, I had an event in a Chabad institution. There were the whole spectrum of Jews were there. It was in a part of California. Again, from the most progressive to the most Orthodox. We're all present at this event. And of course, there was a purple-haired lady asked a question about, it had to do with the numbers and the improportionality of people killed and civilians and blah, blah. And I got into a conversation with her. I said, first of all, you're quoting Hamas's numbers, which again, you realize who's giving you the information. And let's talk about their credibility, but who you're choosing the numbers to quote. I said, again, automatically by their numbers, anyone under the age of 18 is a civilian. And I turned to her and I said, can someone under the age of 18 be a combatant? Is that a possibility in your eyes? And she said, no, soldiers are from 18 and over. I said, okay, it may be according to the U.S. Army. In Africa, in the Middle East, once you're an able-bodied male, you're fighting. It has nothing to do with at the age of 18. Israel only drafts, soldiers and conscripts them from the age of 18. It wasn't always that way in our history.
I'm just going to stop you for a minute. Realize you're doing Hasbarah right now. Right.
But again, hear the way I'm doing it. And when I explained this to her, I didn't back down. I said, okay, let's not use an age standard because that's a very Western, that's a very American way of looking at it. I pointed at the person who invited me, their son. Now, I knew how old he was. He happens to be very, very big. He's about my height, about my weight. And I pointed, could he be a soldier? She looked at him and she said, yes. I said, he's 14. He's 14 years old. So you're saying a 14-year-old could be a soldier now. So do I have to start checking IDs of the soldiers coming at me, how old they are, before I decide if I'm going to react as a soldier or not? And she ceded the point, which was also for me very surprising that I got a purple-haired liberal in California to cede, to say maybe I have to think about this again. But the idea being, she brought up a point. I'm not going to back down and say, oh, you're wrong, but point out the fallacy in her argument, because every time she pushed back, they're children, they're minors, they don't know what they're doing, they don't have responsibility for their actions. At the entire point, I say, okay, define it for me. You decide, you tell me. Someone we hold responsible legally, we can hold you responsible for many different criminal acts starting from the age of 16 in America. There is a level of autonomy over your decisions.
See, again, I'm going back to what I said before.
I'm not explaining. I'm standing there with a strong preface, and I'm not backing down from her. Now, there was another liberal who started screaming and shouting at me that we're starving them in a genocide. And I said, okay, so if you want to argue your feelings, you can step outside. I don't need to sit here and shout and argue with you. I'm not afraid of you, but I don't need to shout and argue with you when you're just spewing lies out of your mouth.
So maybe I've become more extreme, and my answer is far more simplistic. Exactly like you said. Somebody who's coming already from the example of Israel is murdering babies and starving Palestinians, why waste my time? And the problem I have is my answer may be offensive to my supporters. Hear me out. The essence of war is violence.
Okay.
Anything less is stupidity. We are fighting a war against a brutal, evil enemy. It is our duty to enact violence on those who would see us murdered. Now,
Correct.
there are parameters to war. Proportionality means we need to take care that the violence we mete out is proportional to the target at that time. That doesn't mean we need to do a count of, well, there are 10 civilians, and if I do this, then it means 9 civilians are there. And then, no, I need to wipe out X amount of bad people.
But it means that
I have this tool to do it.
it means I need to kill 5 people. I don't drop a nuclear bomb.
Right. I need to kill X amount of people. What is the maximum amount of damage I can do that will kill those people without killing more than the necessary amount of people around them? That is proportionality. Proportionality isn't you kill 5, so I kill 5. You kill 6, so I'll kill 7. That is stupidity.
Correct.
The essence of war is violence. And we need to deal out violence to ensure that violence is not done to us.
Correct.
So the question of, well, you're killing children, my answer is war is violence. If you don't want children to die, stop them from fighting us. I don't care to explain anything to a purple-haired liberal or anyone else.
Right. So again, I recognize that my audience wasn't the woman asking the question, but all of my already people who support me in the room. It's recognizing who your audience is. I wasn't answering her because, again, the fact that she ceded the point and listened and then stayed for the rest of the talk, I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't expecting that, but I answered her in a way for the rest of my audience that's already on my side. Whereas if I came with that response, I would have turned them away. Now, there's a different situation on a different talk on a different college campus where I got asked a question similar to that, where I didn't use the exact language you used just now, but I was very close to that, where I basically called the woman a Hamas supporter and a liar. And I said, if you're going to be in this room, I don't want to share a space with you. And I said, either you're going to walk out or I'm going to walk out. But I said that as she was walking out already.
See, maybe that's why I just don't enjoy
right.
the Hasbarah.
Right. But it's not for everyone.
anymore.
But in the end, it's not for everybody. Again, I think there's a place and there's an importance, not for how, I don't want to call it Hasbarah, because I don't have to explain anything, for public diplomacy, for Israel to constantly be helping its supporters understand why they support Israel. Because in the end of the day, diplomacy is between government to government. But governments are elected by people. And in the end of the day, if we want leadership that supports Israel to be elected in different countries around the world, then we need the population of those countries to be supporters and supporters of Israel. And the only way people are going to be supporters of Israel is if Israel speaks to them and provides them with information. If the only place they're receiving information is from our enemies, then we're not going to have any public support in foreign countries. We're not going to have public support in our own country at that point. And then leaders who are less comfortable for us or less supportive will be elected, and we'll have a bigger problem on a larger international scale. Again, it's not a matter of buying friendship and having people like us. It's helping the people that already agree with you because of their own moral foundation, who are anyways religiously, morally on your side or on our side. It's helping them understand why. And I'm not trying to explain anything. You're leading by example.
Okay. So there are a couple of points. I hear what you're saying, and maybe it's just because I really don't agree fundamentally with the idea of trying to explain our situation away. The first thing I want to bring up, you'd mentioned people who are on our side already. Now, there are many things that don't sound good, are not going to be brought over well. So I hear what you're saying. We need people on our side, but what happens when we do things wrong or we do things bad and people who should be our supporters start saying, well, wait a minute, that doesn't sound so good. This doesn't sound like the moral people I want to support. There's that problem. The second problem is, just like I said, there's international standards and there's law and order and Israel's treated differently. The same thing is true with regards to media sources today. Every single media source today is tainted. And the
Correct.
overwhelming majority of them are tainted against us.
100%.
So there is no neutral, unbiased media source. The primary sources of information are already not in our favor.
Okay.
So there is no way to rectify that.
Right. But again, you're pointing out a problem that we can work around.
How?
The reality is that the large mass media sources are in theory against us. The beauty is of this thing called the internet and podcasts. What we're doing here, we're not part of some large media source. No one's telling us what or how we have to say. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands of podcasts just like this. The question is if the person sitting in this chair on a different podcast, who's already on our side-ish, if he's getting his information from Al Jazeera, or is he getting his information from the Israeli Bureau of Explaining Information? I don't know where. But I'm saying the question is do the people who are leading in the alternative source media space even have an address within Israel that they can turn to and get like, I have this argument, I have this question, how do I understand this? Does a person like Officer Tatum, does a person like Victor Davis Hanson, does a person like Megyn Kelly even, do they have a place they can turn to that's an official source of Israel? Listen, I'm having this discussion. This is an argument I have. Explain to me the reality of what actually happened here. Israel made a mistake. It happens. In war, we make mistakes. Whether we admit it as a mistake or we call it an operational error or you want to call it whatever you want to call it, mistakes do happen. No one's perfect, right? The question is what is the way that Israel frames that mistake? Is like, oh no, we're evil, horrible people. We made this mistake and now we're going to hide from it. Or we're going to accept the reality, which is we had a legitimate and acceptable reason militarily to be doing A, B, and C. Something went wrong and outcome D happened. It's unfortunate. That's nice. Move on, right? There's a different way of framing it or how you present information. Now, if the person on the other end is only getting the Al Jazeera side of the story or the Hamas side of the story, and there's no one representing the facts on the ground and the reality of what happened within the context of the greater conflict, then you have a problem. That person, that happens once, whatever, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, that person's lost to you as a supporter.
Right. But
Now, wait, but 1 second. Alternative media sources exist. Overwhelmingly, the younger you are, the less you're getting your information from recognized standard media outlets. The younger you are, the less likely you are to be watching CNN, Fox, ABC. The less likely you are to be getting your information from there. The more likely you are to be getting your information from the 1,000,001 other sources on the internet, which the beauty of all of them, they're completely open. Anyone can post on there. Anyone can put material up on there. And they're all algorithms. Last time I checked, we are a powerhouse of software engineering and algorithmic understanding and anything in that field. I'm pretty sure we have 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 smart people here that can figure out how to get stuff to work with the algorithm that will get out there better. And if we don't, then maybe we're not the center of the internet world or technologically advanced as we should be.
So there's a couple of things. Firstly, it doesn't really work like that. It also works on a numbers game. There are far more people putting out stuff like we are murdering children and killing babies and drinking blood in Gaza. There are far more of those on the internet than they are, well, this is actually the real story.
Right, but the people watching that aren't our audience. The people who are watching that and taking that seriously are people that we should not be wasting our time talking to.
No, but you spoke about manipulating algorithm. An algorithm is pretty simple like that. There is 10 of those people saying we drink blood to every one who says, oh, there's actually a deeper story.
Right, but I want to make sure that the people that support us and already agree with us are seeing the content or seeing the material that you're putting out here and not seeing, oh, we made a mistake, we're sorry, we'll do better next time, maybe we're not so moral and perfect. You want to see them have a strong, powerful message that says, war is reality. War by definition is, as you said, war by definition is destructive, is vile, is violent, is evil. That's reality.
I didn't say it's evil. I said war, the essence of war is violence.
Violence. Okay. The essence, as you said earlier, the essence of war is violence. Violence happens, and these things happen, and we move on, and they get that explanation, and not, oh, Israel's on purpose killing children or whatever it is. Right? In the end of the day, there's no one putting out that message to begin with. There's a few of us here and there, but it's not an organized, efficient, well-funded machine. There's lots of people involved in it. No one's really guiding it, and no one's forcing that strong messaging.
Right. I think
The
that
official representatives of Israel don't speak that way.
No.
You want the unofficial representatives to speak that way?
I think it goes back to what you said before, that for some reason, for the last 30 years, we've almost felt uncomfortable that our greatest spokespeople, our greatest allies within ourselves, we're kind of uncomfortable being the winners. We're so used to being on the defensive, the victims, perpetually the good guys who are always being bullied. We're uncomfortable with the reality that we need to be violent with our enemies. We're uncomfortable with the fact that we need to stand strong and say things that are sometimes a little discomforting. And because of that, there's no unified message on our side. Alternatively, on the other side, the people who hate us, there is a very simple, unified message. Israel is bad. Israel is always bad. No matter what, Israel is bad. So their message is unified, uniform, straight. Israel bad. Our message until now has been, well, it's kind of like we have to explain, as opposed to what you and I have just said. The message is we're in this war to win. You lift up a sword against us, we will cut you down until we beat you and win. Because we are here to survive and to thrive as the Jewish nation. Nobody has had the guts till now to say, this is our message.
Right. We've been apologetic. And the word in Hebrew is litchanef. I don't even know what the word for that is in English properly, where it's like, we kind of just want to be like, oh, we're sorry, and get we want everyone to like us and be our friends. When in the end of the day, what we really need is for the world to respect us. You don't win respect by being apologetic. You win respect by being, like you said, the strongest, most powerful person on the block. And that's the position we're in today. We've shown the world that we can be, if even ourselves were willing to be, we can be the regional leader in the area, whether the world likes it or not. And eventually they'll come around to that and they'll accept the fact that that's reality.
So I want to very quickly, before we end, people are asking a lot about the New York elections now with Zohran Mamdani taking over. And rather than speak about that directly, I've gotten a lot of questions about who should people vote for around the world. Australia had their election, it was a disaster. Canada had their election, it was a disaster. Trump was elected, it was wonderful. But many people said, well, who should we vote for? Who should I vote for in this election, in the local election, in the national election, in the Senate elections? And I've generally refrained from answering because I live here in Israel. I will happily give advice about, more importantly, I'll give advice to who not to vote for in Israel. But when it comes to wherever you live, whether it's California, Australia, Hong Kong, wherever, my answer is, I don't live there. You do. You live with the consequences of your vote. And I really don't think, and I know this is going to sound weird, I don't think Israel should be a consideration as to why you vote. I know that sounds horrible, but I'll tell you why. The same reason people voted for or against Mamdani in New York. Israel shouldn't be your consideration voting in any election. What should your election be, whether it's local politics or international politics, or for your Senate or for president? What should your consideration? Who will be the best person for my city, for my state, for my country? Who will make my area the best, the strongest, the most economically powerful? Because then, by and large, Israel will be part of that.
That's exactly my same answer.
That is, you want to vote for a winner, a guy or woman who is strong and powerful and will make things better. That is who you vote for. And that is, I think, where we can tie up like this. Where is Israel headed? What do we need? We need to be a nation of winners. Winners are, yes, occasionally humble, but we win. We don't apologize for winning.
Right. So when I was in New Jersey, I got asked the exact same question. I had no idea there was even a local election for the city board of council. I don't even know what it was. and I was asked which candidate which candidate you should vote for. I said, well, I don't even know who's running in the election. I didn't know there was an election coming up for this position. I said, how would I know what makes, I said, well, these are the names of the candidates. These are the parties they're from. What would you do? I said, well, again, you're putting me on the spot for a question. I told you I have no way of knowing what any of them stand for. I said very simply that the person who's the strongest, best candidate for your neighborhood is someone who will make the neighborhood stronger, better, and more economically powerful and safer and a better place for you and your family. And I said to them, unfortunately, that person, I said, most likely, that person will probably also support Israel. Maybe not. I don't really know. Probably. But if that person gets elected, it means you're less likely to move to Israel. So vote for the other guy that will make your life here worse, so you'll have more of a reason to come home. I didn't really answer the guy's question because I really had no idea who was running. But again, I want you to vote for whoever makes it so that you come home sooner. But in the end of the day, you should be voting most of the time whoever's going to actually make the economy stronger, the environment safer, and life overall better. Their morality usually aligns with supporting Israel. Because in the end of the day, there is a baseline morality, and those two things go hand in hand. Once in a while, you get an outlier that doesn't support Israel but is a more moral person, and that's a decision you as a voter would have to make. But that's not, again, I think it's very important for us not to comment on what to vote in elections abroad.
Correct. I agree with you. Okay. And now to sum up something hopeful about the future. I mentioned my story about looking at blood libels 500 years ago, and I flipped it around on myself, and I said, well, today, for the first time in 2,000 years, we're learning slowly not to be the apologetic, the Jew who sits in the corner and wants everyone to like him and worried. For the first time, I think we're growing up, we're learning to be proud. We're learning to be strong. We're finding our feet as this new nation. And whether it's on the battlefield, economically, technologically, academically, whatever else it is, there are great things to come from our country, from our people, and I'm really proud to be part of this journey, and I look forward to what it's going to bring.
Great. And I think that what I was thinking about is that our generation has this unique opportunity where we grew up and we spent most of our childhood and our young adult years under this model of being apologetic and trying to get the world to like us. And we were able to experience that model's failure. And now we're living in a time where we're firsthand part of the winning and the being strong and the showing that to the world. You speak abroad, I speak abroad, many people our age speak abroad, exactly exemplifying what we're talking about. And we see the success that it has. And that leaves me hopeful that maybe we'll actually be able to change something moving forward in Israel's future.
Great. And that's it. As always, we want to thank our partners, Jerusalem Media Group, and our sponsors, BeThereIsrael.com, for all your Israel celebrations and commemorations. BeThereIsrael.com provides live streaming of events here in Israel to your families and friends around the world. And as always, I'm Israel Chai.
I'm Israel Chai.